you're right there in Cape Town, be out there. I've got Mr. Wayne Mckay with me here in the studio. Many of you might know him, and for those that do not know him, you're going to hear all about him today. He's one of my favorite comedians, and we're going to hear some jokes today. I hope. I'm pushing it.
Yeah, you're pushing it. Yeah, I've got longest time, but we'll see. Yeah.
Oh, no, sir, it's a pleasure having you on studio with us today.
Danny, it's a pleasure being here, and thanks for having me. Definitely, thanks.
So, like I mentioned, many know you right now, and there's some that's coming up now, that maybe do not know you. Just for those ones, can you give us a little brief about yourself?
Okay, well, I started off as a as a comedian, as a youngster, from school. For well, in the well at school we started off with the plays and stuff like that. Every year we would have something, or the end of the year we would have a production, and I would be part of that. And then stand-up comedy was something that I also loved. But these days, obviously, in the world that we live in, you got to do a bit of everything. You need to be 4 or 5 different things in order to kind of multi-skill in order to survive in the world that we have. So I do quite a lot of things. So the comedy was part of what I was doing. Starting off at the drama school, as I've mentioned, and in doing stand-up comedy, just taking me to on different journeys for the past quite a number of years. But I'm also I'm a radio presenter as well. Also work in sales and marketing at a very popular community radio station, and then I'm also an MC. I do MC work for whether it's corporates, businesses, NGOs, you name it. I've done those type of things. So keeps me busy as well. Yeah.
You're quite a busy man, and I mean, you've made quite a big name for yourself, and many young comedians today look up to you, and you mentor many as well, like you mentioned one of our own as well. So, just thinking back, where have you grown up? Because these days when we hear about somebody like yourself,
Mhm.
it's always American, it's always overseas.
Yeah.
So it's refreshing to hear that you're from the local.
Yes, no, no. I like to keep it local. It's very important to me because I just find that being local keeps it real. So when you are performing and doing your craft in different parts of the world, whether I'm doing it in Australia, New Zealand, or if I'm doing it in Gauteng, or if I'm doing it in Namibia, and the spots, people can relate because then you bring that authenticity in terms of where you come from. Because I think sometimes what I've seen, not just other comedians, but artists, they too Americanize what they see from what the rest of the world are doing, and then they want to kind of put it out here in South Africa. So South Africans, I think, want to see authenticity. They want to see the realness. So I'm from a place called Kensington, born and bred, but definitely not fled. It's just around the corner here from somewhere in the Western Cape, and then raised out in Mitchell's Plain, out on the Cape Flats, and I've moved just a bit away from where used to stay, but I'm still in contact with regards to my community. So I try when it comes to my work as a comedian, I try and take from the community and put that out on stage so that people can hear and learn as to where we are from. So that's important.
So you're from Kensington in Funny.
In Van Plain, two in one. Yes, yeah,
Well, you mentioned you've got many skills going for you.
yeah.
You're very clued up and you're very talented. So has comedy been, have you seen it to start from a very young age? Did you know right away this is what I want to do, or did you branch into other fields?
Well, I found that I during that time growing up, it was a very turbulent time in South Africa. It was a time of apartheid. It was a time of there was people being shot with tear gas and a whole lot of other things. So that was our time also in terms of COVID-19, because we that was our COVID-19. We had to be indoors because the police was everywhere. So and as a youngster, as a rebel, we were indoors all the time, and like with kids today, be having to be indoors because of COVID-19, they resort to watching things on YouTube, they Netflix, and they stream and watch all these things because it's convenient. That keeps them busy. I watched video cassettes, Betamax, VHS, and started watching comedians, whether it's American comedians, British comedians. I was watching that, but I was also watching South African comedians, satirists, and seeing how they perceive the rest of what's happening in South Africa. And that's how I kind of started developing my kind of flavor for stand-up comedy. I kind of wanted to do my own type of thing. So it is something that I loved. I like to see the creativity and what people, comedians and artists, were doing. But my journey was basically put out for me. So comedy was always on the side as well. But when I was asked to come and do comedy for like corporates or in communities or at festival, I had to kind of write material that would be conducive to them, for the audience. So when I write comedy, it has to be conducive, like for a corporate. You can check them out. So I had to learn that type of skill. So yeah, it is something that I always wanted to do. And I find that with any other skill, like even if you ride a bike, if you haven't ridden a bike now in like 10 or 15 years, if once you get onto that bike again, you know exactly what to do, how to pedal. So for me, it's the same with stand-up comedy. It's just a skill that you have to work on it all the time when you're busy with doing things. Yeah. So yeah.
You mentioned also you like the creativity that came with it. And I know in some of the shows you put in lots of creativity.
Yeah.
So how is that?
Well, in terms of, for example, whether you are dancing or whether you have to want to paint a picture of how to, because as a comedian, for me, I'm just talking about myself, I can't speak for other comedians. I just those that I've seen many years ago in terms of what they were doing, like your Eddie Murphys, the Richard Pryors, there's the Cedric the Entertainers, there's all these comedians, there's white comedians as well, British comedians. You, like I mentioned earlier, you gotta do you gotta kind of have to do you. So I created, as I went along, my own type of artistry in terms of putting the message across. So it's always what is relatable. So while I'm performing, I'm also analyzing at the same time. So yeah, there's certain stuff that will make it on stage, and then there's certain material that I'll just scrap because it's not working. But maybe at a later stage it will work somewhere else. But I know exactly what I want to do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wayne. Guys, I hope you are just as engaged as we are because this here is the OG. You can learn something here because this is
Uchi.
going to go into comedy. We're going to take a short break, guys. We'll be back right after this. All right, guys, welcome back. You're watching Open Studio right here on Cape Town TV. I've got Mr. Wayne Mckay with me in the studio, who is a comedian. All right, one of my favorite comedians, as I mentioned. And today we're talking about his journey to excellence, I should say, because for many of us, it is excellence what you've achieved so
Yeah.
far. And you've been quite an inspiration to me, including myself.
Thank you.
And you know,
Oh, okay. No, thanks.
yeah, just to continue with that conversation, sir, as we mentioned earlier on, you know, your skills has opened many doors for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been working with big corporate companies uh, um, in the past and currently. So, how has that experience been for you, and how have you used your skills of comedy and creativity, you know, to really cater to this audience?
Um, well, over the years, like I say, I have to learn over the years what works and what does not work, because what might work at one company will not work at another company. But I can suss that out very, very quickly. I've had to do events, for example, at somewhere out of Cape Town, like a place maybe called Ceres, and then people would hire you, and it would be at like at a golf club. I remember once having to go out and do a show, and they said to me, they found my stuff on YouTube and they want to hire me for this event. I'm like, okay, fine. When I got to the venue, I discovered they spelled my surname wrong. Not that I had a problem with it. I'm just like, okay, and they paid, and the place was packed, and it was, I like to see my color of people also whenever I go to a function, and it was just white people. I have no problem with white people, but they were all white people. Even the people that were cleaning were white. The people were serving were white. And I prepared everything for a colored, black, white audience. So few minutes before, about 5, 10 minutes before, I was gonna go and on stage and do the show, and then this big marquee. I said to the guy that was doing my sound, I said, listen, we need to change everything here because I don't think this material that I'm going to be doing will work because as you see it, as these people are Afrikaans, they're white, and they might just lynch me, and I've just eaten a big meal. That's not the way I want to go. So let's set up something else. And we basically just um, we just created material right there, which I had in here in one of the folders. And then we added some music, we added some TV series, and then we took them on a journey. I took them on a journey, and they were in another level of uh, they what they couldn't understand is how I knew what they knew. So the idea what I'm trying to bring across is you need to be able to relate to your audience because I took them to it because of Afrikaans people they love their history as well. So I took them on a journey of the history of TV programs and a whole lot of things. They were like crazy laughing because I took them back many years. So yeah, so whether it's a doing work for an audience at a golf club or doing some work at a for corporate, you need to know how to be able to adapt and also do some research on the company itself because sometimes a company could be going through a terrible time whether it's retrenchment or they've for example they had to close a certain part of their building or you just need to know where they're currently standing now as a business and you kind of incorporate that into where they are just try and complement the company as much as you can. Yeah.
Wow. So does this also apply for when you are leading, for example, if you're performing with another country?
Yes. Yes.
Many comedians also might not understand that,
Mhm.
especially for the ones that are coming now. What advice do you have for them?
Well, for the up and comings, especially if they're going to be doing work outside of the country, you must do your research. It's so important because I have I'll just make a quick example. I performed in Namibia, for example, I've been performing there quite a few times, and the one thing that I've learned very quickly is the way that when you are speaking in Cape Town, necessarily don't match the exact way when you're speaking out in Namibia. So people listen differently in terms of the dialect and the twangs and stuff that you do when you're performing, when you're doing comedy, because comedy is like it's like being on a treadmill, you're performing. So they have to listen carefully. So when I performed there for 3 nights, it was over a weekend. The Friday night I did a show and it went off okay, it went off well. But I had someone in the audience just listen to and that's from there. And he then did a breakdown and told me what the way I should speak, the way I should pronounce when I say certain things about Namibia, about the people. So he did a whole thing on there. And then the next day, I went for a little roundabout around Namibia, the areas where I was going to perform. And the Saturday night it was back. They said, no, it was good because they knew by the Sunday, I had it to the T. So it's all about complimenting your audience, respecting your audience, and also where you find yourself. Because I think sometimes comedians feel that because they are comedians, they're seen as celebrities, automatically they have carte blanche to say what they want to say. You must be very cautious what you say. Sometimes you could be a very sensitive audience, but not. But say what you need to say. Bring the comedy out, but in a way that you don't want to offend. Do you understand? So that is the way I try. So that is my advice to young up and coming comedians is to take your craft very seriously. It is just exactly the same like any other craft, whether you're a singer, guitarist, drummer, whatever the case may be, but make it your own. Okay.
Don't attack people.
Don't attack people. If they attack you, yeah, because that is also another way of it's called heckling. People when people heckle you. I've dealt with a few of them. They no longer exist because when I heckle back, they like, oh my god, what happened here? You know. So I don't take them too seriously because just focus on what you need to do as a stand-up comedian. Go through your page to do what you need to do in terms of what you've prepared and then once you've seen okay people have loved it then you work on the next one but never stop working and creating otherwise you can become stagnant.
Wow. Because I mean that heckling is the right word.
Mhm.
You can actually play with your emotions.
It can,
Stay.
and that is why with stand-up comedy that is or it's been recognized as like under public speaking is one of the worst fears. Death is number two, but public speaking is seen as number one. Yeah. So public speaking is number one, the worst fear. So yeah. So you need to be not say on top of your game. You must just be very wary of hecklers because sometimes they are there deliberately to kind of put you off track. But if it's water off my back when it comes to hecklers. Yeah.
You have to be a professional, and you are a professional.
Oh no, I try.
So, guys, we're going to take another short break. When we come back, we'll continue with our conversation with Mr. Wayne Mckay. So, do not go anywhere. All right, guys, welcome back. Mr. Wayne Mckay is with me here in studio, who is a good and one of my favorite comedians that I've been mentioning throughout the show. And I'm not going to get tired of saying that because, I mean, how often do you get to see Mr. Mckay? How often do you get to sit next to? Wow, this is just a feeling that cannot be explained. And hearing you speak about your journey and how much of an influence you've been to others, by giving them like value tips as to how they can better their performance as comedians is really inspiring. And now, just diving away from the comedy side of things, you mentioned that you also did many other courses like events
Yeah.
and so forth. If we just go into that for a second, how has that experience been like for you? And I think you led that industry.
Yeah.
Wow,
Okay.
transition.
Okay. No, I was in media for about 17 years. So I basically started off in print media, selling newspapers, working my way up, and going a journey. And the last job that I had there was sales and promotion marketing coordinator. Before that, I was a publisher as well. So I worked with many titles of newspapers, magazines, international magazines, etc. And then I moved on. But I also had a love for radio and stuff like that. But at the same time, while I was working full time, I was also studying events management because at that stage, having doing some work over the weekends to get some extra bucks doing these events, I also started loving doing events. So I started studying events. So I had to get the qualifications, but I was already doing the practical. So that is part of the reason why. So my journey then continued in terms of that. And at the same time, while I was doing that, I was trying to. I also had a love for radio, and it's been, I don't know, I think it's more than 10, 15 years now that I'm still in radio, community radio. So it's great for me to be able to do that as well. But in terms of events, love it. So when it comes to big events, small events, I'm that guy. I'm the guy. I'm the whole package. I make sure that your event is successful. That's the first thing I guarantee. And then all the work behind that, I make sure that everything goes according to plan. So yeah, I'm very much involved with that. Even if I have to am part of an event, I always make sure I bring my expertise across to the client, and they were like, "Okay, Mr. McKay, you see, you've done all, you've basically, covered everything that we have forgotten to do." Because I always ask questions. That's why a briefing for me is extremely important. Yeah, briefing is very important. You just don't go in and do a thing and hope that it's going to be okay. You make sure that there's a briefing, you know what's expected, and then you deliver. So that's the way I work with. Yeah,
Definitely very structured.
very structured. Everything must be structured. Because I think that is even for our up and coming, our youngsters wanting to go into a field, whether it's radio, events management, or stand up comedy, is try and let someone either mentor you or try work with someone that's in that particular field. So it's not just about getting the practical experience, also get the theory as well. So but the practical is very good, is it's core, but also the theory is also important. Yeah, so that you can back it up. So it's not just something that you wake up and do. You get the qualifications.
I mean, you've been busy. You are a very busy person, and during this period that you face yourself in the pandemic, that's been a struggle for many.
Yeah.
So how have you been able to manage, your time?
Mhm.
Also, how have you been able to make use of your skills during this period of the pandemic?
Okay. During that time, obviously after March 26, when we obviously with regard to the lockdown, I'm in radio as well. So part of what we do, we provide an essential service, which meant I had to work every day. So we basically kind of did the whole rotation in terms of myself, because I'm in sales and marketing as well. We also did, I also do presenting as a radio presenter. So I've got a show as well. So those are the things that just kept me busy from day to day, from Monday to Friday. So I will be at studio all the day. While everyone was on lockdown, I was on air trying to inform people, wear your mask and keep your distance and sanitize as much as you can. All those things that needed to be done. But at the same time, I was also writing stand-up material for a show I just did a week or two ago, just about COVID-19. And then at the same time, also study online. I did some studies online as well. So that is the thing that kept me busy.
You have everything just going.
Yes, I have things going because I think you need to. I just find that with COVID 19, it just gave you an opportunity to reassess yourself, who you are, what you do, even when you have a business, even when you're solo, even if you are self employed, or whatever the case may be, you needed to, because it was a time for you to refocus and say, okay, how am I going to go? What's the way forward for 2020? What can I bring for 2021? So, whilst I was doing this in 2020, plans were already afoot. As I'm sitting here with you, I was already consulting yesterday on Zoom for things that I want to do if I'm still alive and well for October of 2021.
So what is it?
Ah, it's something I can't the cat in the bag yet. It's still we first want to see where the what's happening with regards to COVID-19 before we can say, okay, this is what we're going to be doing. But that, like I said, the plans is already afoot. We already started with the structure of what we want to do, what I want to do as a comedian for 2021 in October. So the plans can only we started with everything, but we can only execute once we know where we stand with regards to COVID-19. Because I don't like to put the cart before the horse, and then tomorrow it's like it's all up in the air. So that's what we do in terms of planning.
Okay, wow. So what is somebody right here now watching you and they want to use your services for MC
Oh,
to a comedy tonight?
okay.
How can they do so?
Okay, no, thank you. What they can do is they can send me an email, which is waynmckay1@gmail.com. The one, that's the only one Wayne. Because people ask me, is there two Waynes? I'm like, no, there's only the one. So it's WAYNEMCKAY1 at gmail.com. If they want to inquire anything from birthday party to corporate event to wedding, I do weddings as well. If they're doing award ceremonies, if they want me as a business to put everything together for them, as a company, as event, because we do everything, provide suppliers, anyone, from you name it, we do staging, we get all that for you. I've got a list of all those suppliers that I've worked with, over caterers and all those type of things. They can get hold of me via that email address, waynmckay1@gmail.com, or they can get hold of me on Facebook. Just type in my name, Wayne Mckay, that's MCKAY, or stand up comedian Wayne Mckay. Then I'm the only dark one on Facebook. All the other Wayne Mckays, they're white. And they even sometimes send me email. They're like, Mr. McKay, I think this is for you, not for us. I'm here in Norway. I don't think I can make it to Cape Town. So I think this request is for you. And then just listen to me on radio as well in terms of what I do. I'm at Bush Radio 89.5 FM. Yeah.
All right, Mr. McKay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming to the studio and talking to us today, and really, bringing out, the best in you and giving the best advice you can for the young people out there, especially those who want to go into the same field as you. And I hope for those that
Thank you.
I really hope that you guys will really engage and you enjoy this conversation we had today. Having this case is one of the biggest we should put ever had because kids are COVID-19. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much,
My pleasure. Thank you.
guys. So we've come to the end. Until next time, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.